Hello, I'm Alicia and welcome to the first weekly reading update in 2025. I did already finish a book actually. I'm very happy and surprised, and I did start a couple, so let's just go ahead and talk about them. So the first book that I finished in 2025 is called All the Water in the World. This is by Eiren Caffall, and this is actually her debut fiction novel. She did previously publish a memoir, which I did see end up on one of my mutual's best books of 2024. So I do eventually want to go back and read her memoir. So it will be coming out tomorrow. It's going to be published on January 7th. I ended up enjoying this novel. I gave it a 3.5 stars. It is a debut literary fiction, climate fiction novel. It's a story that intertwines a lot of different elements. It's a story about a world ravaged by climate change where the ice glaciers melted, there's continuous rain, coastal cities are being flooded. It's also a quest for survival, a story about sisters, and a look at loss and humanity in these specific times. So we are following primarily a young girl named Nani. Once the world began to flood, Nani, her mother, her father, and her sister ended up seeking refuge at the American Natural History Museum. They refer to it as AMAN. Several of the people who worked there and had access ended up bringing their families into this particular area and began to form a community. A lot of their focus was on preserving history and any natural artifacts that were within this natural history museum. And so they were okay for a couple of years, especially because our main character, Nani, has this unique ability to connect with water, meaning she's able to sense it in a heightened way that other people around her can't. And so she would feel when a lot of these massive storms were coming through, and her community could take refuge in a very particular way. However, one day she doesn't feel a really big storm that comes and basically destroys all of the levees and other infrastructure that was keeping the majority of the ocean outside of New York City, and Nani and the survivors have to essentially go find a new home. This was really interesting. I actually found a lot of similarities to Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. In particular, Nani having this special, unique ability. This story is also being told to us via her perspective as part of this logbook that she's keeping. And then their home is suddenly destroyed, and her and the survivors are exploring the rest of the world, encountering other people and other dangerous elements to find a new place to call home. So all of those elements are reminiscent of Parable of the Sower to me in particular. Where it does diverge though, in my opinion, is in the tone. The tone feels something closer to that of Station 11. It's a very quiet and very introspective story. It's also very slow moving. So if you're someone who prefers something that is more fast paced with a lot of action, this one may not be for you. There are a lot of things that happen, but they happen in a very slow moving pace. The story is also not told in a fully linear style. We are following the survivors as they make their way from point A to point B. However, interspersed within the story, we have flashbacks of Nani growing up in this life as it is and remembering life as it was, and also dealing with the loss of her mother and how that impacted her and her views on the world. I found some moments and some sentences in this particular story to be very impactful and lyrical and beautiful. However, overall, I felt like it was a bit scattered, a little bit all over the place. I still really enjoyed it, and I would definitely pick up more books by this author in the future. So that was the only book that I finished. However, I did start a couple of other books. The library book that I started this week is called Autocracy Inc. The Dictators Who Want to Run the World by Anne, I can't read her name behind the sticker, Anne Applebaum. Here it is. It's a pretty short nonfiction book. I was thinking about DNFing it. I only have one chapter left though, so it's about, I don't know, it's less than 40 pages till I make it to the end, so I might just push through and finish it. It's not exactly what I was anticipating. So Anne Applebaum makes the case that there are autocracies out there that are manipulating the world at an international level, and that there's no longer these like individual set of dictators that want to rule a particular country, but rather a group of people who are autocrats and kleptocrats, and they want to keep their power and their money above all else, and why this is a particular threat to democracy. I'm finding it to be very surface level. She sort of just gives you a bunch of facts and then moves on without any deeper analysis. So far, she's talked about Cuba and Venezuela, Russia and China, and maybe it'll come in that last chapter, but I just think it's interesting how a lot of the more dominant democratic powers who are heavily capitalist are not really mentioned in this, like the UK, like the US, like Israel. They're not really criticized for the ways in which capitalism can also be tied to autocratic leaning regimes. Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, but you know what? I'll finish it and see if there's something more in here. I actually don't know where I left this book. It's somewhere around. I was reading it and I put it down. But this is a book that I'm bringing with me from 2024 that I didn't finish. I started it 2 days before the year ended and I only made it halfway through. This is I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. This is his most recent release, if I'm not mistaken, and it's a first POV story of exactly what the title says, a teenage slasher. It's very gory, it's very brutal, it's really rambly. If you're someone who loves slasher films or reading about slashers and final girls, I think you'll really enjoy this because there's a lot of like commentary about that in particular. It did take me a while to get used to the narration style just because it's very rambly. At certain points, I had no idea what was going on, but now that I'm into the flow of the narration style, I'm understanding it a lot more and I'm enjoying the story a lot more. I did start another advanced reader copy that I have. This is called The Queen's Spade by Sarah Raughley. This is going to be published sometime in January. I just started it. I'm about 2 chapters in. So far, from what I gathered, it's about this African princess who is brought over to England during Queen Victoria's reign and sort of given as like a prize or gift to her, and she ends up becoming her goddaughter. She is not happy about her situation and the way that she's being treated, and so she plots the takedown of Queen Victoria and anyone who has slighted her. I think it's going to be really interesting. It is a historical fiction novel. Just started it. I don't really have thoughts on it right now, but I'll let you know next week once I read a little bit more, and hopefully I'll have it finished by then. And then the last book that I started, I was not expecting to read this book ever, or this series. It was just not a series that appealed to me, but the show got me. And I can't wait to find out what the fuck is going on. So Ben and I started watching Silo and we are addicted. We love that show. So I ended up picking up Wool by Hugh Howey. I just started it. I think I'm about 10% in. And so far overall, I think the show is following the book pretty well. There are a couple of details here and there that are off, but for the most part, I'm not really learning anything new. But yeah, I'm enjoying the audiobook so far. So that was the audiobook that I ended up picking up. Once I'm done with any of these, I'm going to pick up a new library book, a new ARC, and a new audiobook. I always have something in rotation. Oh, and also a new book from my shelves. I'm actually trying to read more books on my shelf this year, so I don't know how I'm going to do it. I was thinking of either doing a 25 books that I want to read in 2025 that is exclusively from books that I already own with a focus on backlisted books, or I was thinking of doing a TBR jar where each week I pull out one book that I tried to start and finish and read that week, or something along those lines. Let me know down below what you think would be best. I haven't tried either. Well, okay, I've had a 24 books to read in 2024 and a 23 books to read in 2023. And I was never really successful with those. So maybe a TBR jar is the way to go. I just get overwhelmed with that many amount of books. I could lower it. I don't know. We'll see. I'll think about it. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, those are my reading updates. I'm not entirely sure what I'll be starting next, other than Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. I know that one will be the next arc I will be starting after The Queen's Spade. I ended up putting a poll on Instagram and this is the one that won, so that's why I started it, but that one's immediately after. Let's see, life updates. We were on vacation. I'm going back to work this coming week. It's going to be brutal. First week back for me. We are like remodeling the hallway outside of our bedroom because we have cats and we had a carpet and our cats peed all over the carpet and it ended up like rotting the baseboards and it was like a whole mess. So we replaced the carpet with floor and we didn't really want to buy trim, so we ended up buying tiles and we're tiling the... I'll show you in a video because it's hard to explain. So we ended up putting the tiles in, we grouted, and now we're caulking. And now we're caulking, so it's almost done. I like the way that it looked, but sadly they also like peed on the door trim and we didn't want to replace that whole thing, so we ended up sawing it off and filling it with wood glue, which does not look nice, so I need to sand it down and paint over it. It's a whole process. On Monday, or the day that you're going to be watching this, it'll also be Rosca Day. Our family grew up eating roscas. It's like this circular bread with like candy and like some other stuff, and there's babies inside, and if you eat a piece with a baby you have to make tamales for a different time. I think it's tied to like a Catholic tradition or something, but I always just eat it because of the bread and I like the bread. So I actually ended up eating the bread today, not on Monday, so that's just another thing. Those are all of my updates. Let me know down below how you're going, what you're reading. How's 2025 treating you? My nonfiction favorite books of 2024 will be the next video you see, and then after that probably my December wrap up. Thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.